decision-making process. Now, these notes are located on my website, and you can also be sure as you go through this to take notes in your notebook. I'm going to actually be creating a chart or a diagram here that you're going to want to be sure to know how to create yourself, as you're going to see this again on the exam. Let's take a look here. When we talk about the decision-making process, the steps that I'm going to give to you or you are going to use aren't going to be steps that you are going to use all the time. This may be a process that you may only use once or twice in your life. With that being said, the reason that we like it is that it really encourages individuals to begin to consider multiple alternatives. And even more importantly than that, it also makes individuals verbalize or put down on paper what different criteria are important when making a decision. I think all too often we make decisions just based on what feels good, not necessarily on specific specified criteria. So I'm going to give you an example later on here as we create the actual chart and looking at a university, and you'll see what I mean a little bit more when we talk about criteria and alternatives. Now the first step is to define the problem. So whatever it is, and for example today what we're going to look at in particular is the problem I'm going to go through is which university to select in a post-high school for a post-high school student. So in this case, the problem that we're going to define, and I've got my notes here. So in my notes, I'm going to create this chart. So let me kind of zoom. Oops, sorry. Let me zoom in here. So what post-high school or what university? Let me do it that way. What university should I attend? Okay. So when we look at this, I've defined my problem. What university should I attend? It's clear. I'm definitely selecting a university. It's also objective. You want to be sure not to have any emotions involved in this, and it focuses on the issue at hand. Now, step number 2 is we're going to list our alternatives. Now, some things that are important when we look at this and to be sure to underline is number 1, you need to limit them. At a certain point, you can't go on and on. Having 37 different universities that you want to attend, it's just not realistic either. And you got to limit it. Maybe it's 5, maybe it's 6, but you have to set that ahead of time. And the second thing is you need to be realistic. Just like with any good goal setting process, you need to be sure that the goal that you're setting is attainable. Same thing here when you're listing your alternatives. So, if I'm a 3.0 GPA kid with a 28 ACT, maybe putting down Stanford or Harvard on my list of alternatives for college isn't very realistic. So what we're going to actually do here on the chart, as I kind of zoom in just a little bit here, is we're going to make kind of a big just graph. Let me pull this up here. So as I zoom in here, let's make our list of alternatives. So I'm going to say the U of M. Okay, we'll say Madison. We'll say St. Thomas. Okay, and Hamlin. Okay. So as I zoom this out, you can see here are my different alternatives. And now what we are going to do is we're going to go on to step 3. Now, step 3 is the criteria. The criteria is how we are going to judge or separate these 4 different universities from one another. Criteria could be, and I have some examples there, cost, usefulness, enjoyment, etc. So let's first start off by taking a look and creating some of our criteria. So I'm going to zoom in just a little bit here. One of the most important things maybe is the cost of the university. It's a huge part of it nowadays. A second criteria may be distance from home. So I'm going to put that. Okay. And then I'm going to look at maybe sports. Maybe I want to be able to go to games on a Saturday. And then the last thing is the major. Okay. So as we zoom out here, this is how I'm going to determine and I'm going to judge. And this is the thing that I like the most about this process is the ability to specify different criteria and then use this criteria to help you make that decision. Now the next step here, and I think really this is the most important thing, is that you need to rank the actual criteria itself. So some of these 4 criteria are more important than others. So cost maybe is a bigger deal to me than what distance from home is in sports. And maybe major is more important to me than distance from home. So I'm going to zoom in here. We've got to rank these 4 criteria. And maybe for me, the number one thing is the cost. As I scroll over here, the number 2 thing is the major. Then number 3 thing is distance from home, and then my least important criteria here is actually the sports, or kind of what's going on the campus. So this is super important. This is why making a list of pros and cons is not effective, because a list of pros and cons doesn't necessarily take into account different criteria, and it doesn't take into account which things are maybe more important than others. So here we have kind of our laid out grid. Now we're going to actually set up this grid like we just did. And we're going to evaluate each alternative by looking at our different criteria. So let's take a look here. We'll go to purple. Okay, so we're going to go through. As you can see, we've established that a ranking of number 1 is the best. I'll write that down here. And a 4 equals the worst. Okay, I have a problem with S's today, I'm sorry. And a 4 is the worst. Okay, so we're going to actually go through now. So we look at cost, and our goal here is to keep cost low. When you look which options are the cheapest, well, the U of M is going to be the cheapest. Madison will be the second cheapest, and we'll just say, for this sake, Hamline and actually St. Thomas is going to be the most expensive. Let me go back. I'm going to slide these rankings over here just a little bit. And you'll see why in just a second. Then we go distance from home. And my goal is to stay relatively close to home. So when you look at this, really St. Thomas and Hamline are horse apiece. So I could make these both a 1 for distance from home. And this one would be a 3. And that one is the farthest from home. When you look at sports, we'll go 1. I'm from Wisconsin. 2, 3, 4. And then maybe major, we go 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever your major maybe is. Okay, so what we've done is rank them. Now at this point what you see is that what we could do is just add them across the board. So we could go kind of something like this. We could say, okay, we could say for the U of M, we've got 4, 6, 7. So this one would be a total of 7. And then we've got 6, 10. And then we've got 8, 12. And then 10. So based just on this, we would select the U of M. Now I'm going to get rid of these rankings here because I want to show you one thing that we didn't take into effect here, is we didn't take into effect our rankings. And so if all we do is add it across, what we're saying is a major is exactly the same in making our decision as the actual cost of college here. We don't want to do that. We want to be sure to give some level of weight to these rankings again that are right here. So what we're going to do is actually pull these down as a multiplier. Okay, now what we're basically doing is we're giving a low score in a less desired criteria area actually a little bit larger score. So what we end up with overall is, I'm just going to do this for the U, is something that looks a lot more like this. Okay, so when we add these up, give me 1 second here, we end up across the board with a 20 for the U. And I'm going to go through, give me 1 second, I'm going to go through and total these all up all the way across. So what we end up with in the end, if I change my colored pencil here, what we end up with the end is that our choice based on all of this should be the U of M. They have the lowest score. And if you look, they actually, in our 2 major categories of cost and major, led the way with a 1 ranking. Sports, they were with a 2 ranking. Distance from home, still not that far, it was a 3 ranking. Compared to our least selected choice, when you look at cost, St. Thomas was the most expensive. It was the worst for our major. For sports, it was number 3. It led the way in distance from home, but distance from home, if you come up here, is our 3rd ranked ranking. So in the end, what we're doing is we're totaling this across. Again, we're taking a look at multiple different alternatives, and we're also taking a look here at multiple different criteria. And most importantly, as we go through this, we are ranking these different criteria. So we've gone through step number 4. Number 5, we've identified and chose the best alternative. And in the end, the biggest thing here is that the hope is that you can kind of grasp that by looking at all of these different variables, the different long-term implications of making a decision, and take a very objective look at what factors are actually going and being taken into account when you make a decision. So in the end, the U of M is our choice. If you have any questions, please feel free to let me know. Otherwise, thanks. Have a great day.